Well, good morning from Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. That's Jeddah, the city, and not Jeddah, the cheese. And today I'm taking a flight on the first ever low-cost airline in Saudi Arabia, Flynas. Let's head to the airport and head on an adventure across Saudi Arabia. It is far too early in the morning. There should only ever be one 5 o'clock in any day.
Now, the airport at Jeddah is the third largest airport in the whole of Saudi Arabia, but one thing it doesn't have is any on-site hotels, so I ended up staying about 20 minutes drive away at this Movenpeak hotel, which cost me $100 a night. But that said, the drive to the airport wasn't too bad at all, and within about 20 minutes or so we were arriving at the beautiful new terminal here at Jeddah Airport. By the time we arrived at the airport, it was time for the morning call to prayer, which never stops sounding awesome. It really does sound like you're travelling through somewhere really exotic.
Wow, this airport is incredible, isn't it? This is the new terminal here at Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. Right, let's go through security.
Jeddah's new Terminal 1 opened in 2019, initially serving domestic flights within Saudi Arabia. At over 8.7 million square feet, it's the world's second largest terminal under one roof after Istanbul. It's got 84 jetways, and the distance from check-in to the furthest gate is over a mile. Aside from being absolutely massive in scale, it features an outdoor garden, a 46 feet deep aquarium and a 3,700 capacity mosque.
Alright, airside through security, all very painless actually. One thing I do have to say is the people here, Dunkin' Donuts, one thing I do have to say is the people I've met so far here in Saudi have been absolutely lovely. Just amazing people, so friendly and helpful.
One thing I did need though at this time of the morning was a nice cup of coffee, but fortunately I found a coffee shop to get my fix.
Welcome.
Hi, good morning. Can I get an Americano?
Americano hot?
Hot please, yes.
Okay, sugar?
No, thank you.
Okay. This one?
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you, have a good day. Bye-bye. Now, given the size of the airport here at Jeddah, I was quite pleased that the domestic flights go from the gates that are closest to the security checkpoint, so I didn't have much of a walk at all down to the gate.
Alright, so the crew have just turned up for the flight. Rather interestingly, actually, the flight crew, at least the pilot and the first officer, seem to be British/Irish, which is interesting because Flynas are a Saudi low-cost airline. They've been going around for quite a few years now here in Saudi Arabia, flying Airbus A320s, the CEOs and the NEOs as well they've got, and they've been growing pretty rapidly. They've started operating flights all around the Middle East from here in Saudi Arabia, which is pretty cool and nice to see. We should be getting on board pretty soon and heading across to the plane for our flight to Riyadh.
Now, as I sat drinking my coffee and relaxing, I suddenly became aware of the fact that the flight had almost finished boarding. Now, either there were no announcements or I'd simply missed them, but either way, I was one of the last to board just before they closed the gate. Lesson learned, always pay attention when the flight's about to go. All good? Thank you. For many years, Saudi Arabia only had one airline, the government-owned flag carrier Saudia. However, in 2006, the Saudi government made an historic move by granting licenses to two new private airlines, an airline called Sama Air and a new low-cost airline called National Air Services, or NAS. NAS branded themselves as NAS Air, and we won't go into the semantics of an airline called National Air Services Air, as it's not really important, just really annoying to my pedantic brain, but they started operations in early 2007 with just 5 planes, becoming not only the first low-cost airline in Saudi Arabia, but also the first private airline there, full stop. NAS Air grew their fleet rapidly, serving destinations around the Middle East, and in 2013 they rebranded to their current name, Flynas. Today they fly to destinations as far to the west as France and as far east as India, and pretty much everywhere in between. I'm flying them today to the city of Riyadh, which is quite an important route for them, as I'll talk about later in the video, but for now let's get on board one of their Airbus A320s for a flight across Saudi Arabia. I'm good, how are you? 29 out of 40.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, hi, good morning. This A320 seats 180 passengers in an all-economy configuration, but some of their planes have a small business class cabin at the front too. Aside from the A320s, they also operate two A330s, also on their domestic routes. Right then, welcome on board the Flynas Airbus A320. This is a older A320. They also have some Neos in the fleet, but this is one of the original OG A320s, and it's not too bad really. The leg room is low cost-ish. The seats kind of your typical low cost leather seats and everything. Nothing really to distinguish much on the plane. No sort of branding really on the plane, which is interesting, but it should be a good flight for what I've paid, and I'll reveal that at the end of the video. It's not too shabby at all, and I think it's about an hour, maybe an hour and a half across to Riyadh from here in Jeddah. Today I'm flying on Flynas's most popular route, Jeddah to Riyadh. They serve this route 15 times a day in each direction, but the Jeddah to Riyadh route isn't just Flynas's most popular route, it's the 5th busiest air route in the whole world, full stop, and the world's busiest route outside of East Asia. In addition to Flynas's 15 daily flights each way, Saudia operate the route 20 times a day in each direction, along with Saudia's low-cost arm Flyadeal, who fly it 15 times a day too, meaning these two cities in Saudi Arabia have a whopping 100 flights a day connecting them, or 50 times each way. It wasn't long before we were pushing back for our own flight across to Riyadh.
Your seatbelt is fastened.
Here's a quick reminder to follow me on Instagram, where I live vlog all of my trips in real time through Instagram stories. You can follow me at noelphillips.official on Instagram. Our route today then took us east out of Jeddah towards Riyadh in the centre of Saudi Arabia. Flight time today was 1 hour and 6 minutes, cruising at 37,000 feet. Alright then, so airborne from Jeddah on the Flynas A320. This aircraft actually, from what the crew have been saying, is actually operated by a Maltese company called Avion Express, which would explain the Western cabin crew on this flight. I don't know about their own aircraft and whether they've got their own crews, they're more local or not, I'm not entirely sure, but that's okay. There's still quite a nice plane. It's quite a nice plane to ride on. The legroom situation isn't amazing, I have to say. It's a good job there's nobody sat at the side of me, otherwise I'd be struggling a little bit, I have to say. But Flynas, they're based here in Saudi Arabia, and they fly as far afield as like India, even to Europe in the summer months as well, to like Austria and places like that in the summer months. So these planes do some pretty long flights. I'm not sure whether I'd be as comfortable as this if it was anything more than an hour or two's flight. These are pretty tight aeroplanes. Whether they're Neos and their own planes have got any more room on them, I'm not sure at all, but this is okay for quite a short flight that we've got today. There's a buy on board service, I think. I've pre-ordered my meal, and the only meal it would let me order is a bottle of water, so obviously being a low-cost flight domestic here in Saudi Arabia, there isn't really a lot of choice in terms of the on-board menu, but that's okay because it's only like an hour long anyway. After we'd been airborne for about 15 or 20 minutes, the cabin crew started to come around offering their buy on board service. Now, even though I'd pre-bought my bottle of water before I got on the flight, it seemed that the message hadn't got through to the crew, and unfortunately everybody just had to pay for their food again. It wasn't too bad though, it was only a couple of dollars, but surely that's something that needs kind of looking at. The food on board was pretty reasonably priced too. I think it cost me a couple of dollars for a cup of coffee and a packet of cookies. Right, so the crew have come around with some buy on board stuff. I've just bought some cookies and a coffee. We haven't got long, about 20 minutes till we start our descent. I was chatting to the cabin crew actually. They're actually from Lithuania, some of them. Turns out Avion Express is like half Maltese and half Lithuanian, so a lot of the crew are Lithuanian, which is quite interesting, working down here in Saudi. But I've got my coffee. That should give me a bit more of a kick up the backside, wake me up a little bit as we head down towards Riyadh.
Altitude right now we're flying cruising altitude of 37,000 feet, which is approximately 11.3 kilometers. Cruising speed right now is well above 1,000 kilometers per hour, so we have a pretty strong tailwind.
Thanks to the strong tailwind, it wasn't too long at all before we were starting our descent down into Riyadh. Alright then, started our descent down into Riyadh. We should be on the ground very shortly. It's getting a little bit bumpy, but hopefully we'll be on the ground fairly soon. Now I don't know about you, but even flying over endless desert, I still find it fascinating watching out the window. The scenery, even in a place that's just desert, is just absolutely phenomenal when seen from a plane. So here we are then at Riyadh, formerly the world's largest airport, but now third largest to only Dammam Airport in Saudi Arabia and Denver in terms of acreage. The airport covers a mammoth 144 square miles, or slightly bigger than the entire city of Las Vegas. My flight today then cost me $66, or just over 50 quid, working out at a cost of 12 pence per mile. Honestly, as low-cost airline flights go, I didn't think that was bad at all, because Flynas got me where I wanted to go, and pretty cheap as well, which is pretty much all you can ask for from a low-cost airline, really, isn't it? Thank you, nice to meet you. See you next time, bye-bye. Now, like many low-cost airlines, Flynas use remote stands, and you have to get on a bus to the terminal, which normally isn't too bad, but with Riyadh being such a big airport, it took us about 20 minutes to get to the airport terminal. It was a really, really long drive. Eventually though, we made it to the terminal and stepped out into the really modern terminal here at Riyadh International Airport. As always, I'd like to say a thank you to my amazing Patreons who help support the channel. They get access to our WhatsApp group, which is a really lovely community of AvGeeks, as well as joining me on a Zoom call once a month where we talk about all sorts, plus early access to all of my videos up to a week early. You can join them at the link on the screen now.
Hi and welcome to Riyadh King Khaled International Airport, formerly the world's biggest airport, not anymore, overtaken by quite a few others I think, but it's still a massive airport none the same. Great flight over from Jeddah this morning with Flynas. I'm off to fly on another cool airline now, so stay tuned for next week so you don't miss that video, but in the meantime, thanks so much for watching, take care, and I'll see you next time.